In Revolutionary times, the Battle of Long Island was fought here on what is now Parkland. American forces had failed to hold the battle pass after some of the heaviest fighting in the engagement. Its loss contributed to George Washington's decision to retreat. Preserving the battle pass area was a major reason in establishing Prospect Park here in this area. One of several small monuments in the vicinity of what is known as Battle Pass is the Dongan Oak Monument. Here a large white oak was cut down by colonial soldiers and thrown across the road to impede the advance of the British Army. It's been a bit of a battle to keep this eagle on its granite. The eagle was stolen in 1974, but in 1991 the Prospect Park Alliance sponsored the restoration of the monument and replication of the bronze eagle. Sculptor John Metrovics modeled the replacement based on historic photographs. Unfortunately, the eagle was stolen again, but a second replacement was made. From the Revolution to the Civil War, military events are well represented in and around Prospect Park. Just outside the north end of the park in Grand Army Plaza sits the monumental Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Arch. Unveiled in the presence of President Grover Cleveland on October 21, 1892, the arch was not part of the original park design by Olmsted and Vaux. The arch was designed by John H. Duncan, but the sculptures came 9 years later. Suggested by the architectural firm of McKim, Mead & White, the figures resulted from a desire to formalize the plaza in the spirit of the City Beautiful movement. Park Commissioner Frank Squire engaged Frederick MacMonnies to design 3 sculptural groupings for the arch: the Quadriga, the Spirit of the Army, and the Spirit of the Navy. Nearly 3,000 Brooklynites perished in World War I, and the Honor Roll Monument in Prospect Park is dedicated to their memory. Arthur D. Pickering was the architect, and Henry Augustus Lukeman designed the statue under the guidance of Daniel Chester French. Paying tribute to the dead at the monument's unveiling, the Reverend S. Parks Cadman said, "I hate war. Who does not? Except some military lunatic who should not be at large. But we must remember that peace has its dangers no less renowned. If we as a nation sink to a luxury-loving level, then we have lost the spirit that made the United States a possibility, and the sacrifices of these men and women will have been in vain." The largest concentration of sculptures in Prospect Park is found in the Concert Grove. Here you'll find busts of Beethoven and Mozart, as well as a full bronze figure of Abraham Lincoln. The most prominent feature of the Concert Grove is the Oriental Pavilion, with its ornate carvings and stained glass skylight. 3 of the bronzes found in the grove were donated by the United German Singers of Brooklyn as trophies won in the National Sangerfest choral competitions. These works include Henry Bauer's bust of Ludwig van Beethoven, August Müller's Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and Chester Beach's Carl Maria von Weber. From 1869, Henry Kirk Brown's Abraham Lincoln was a gift from the War Fund Committee of Kings County and is one of the oldest statues in the park. It originally stood in Grand Army Plaza until being relocated to the Grove in 1895. Other statues in the Grove portray Irish poet Thomas Moore, American author Washington Irving, and composer Edward Grieg, a gift of the Norwegian Societies of Brooklyn. At the Park Circle entrance stands the animated Horse Tamers by Frederick MacMonnies. In the 1890s, the eminent architect Stanford White devised a plan to enhance Prospect Park with sculpture, and MacMonnies was to become the principal sculptor. Today, MacMonnies is indeed well represented in the park, with major contributions at both the north and south ends. MacMonnies was a Brooklyn native, but his studio was in Paris, and his pieces were cast in France. The full-scale plaster models were exhibited at the Parisian Salon of 1898 and at the Universal Exhibition of 1900. One of the bronze statues was damaged in shipping, then lost in a shipwreck off Newfoundland. Recovered and repaired by MacMonnies, both sculptures were unveiled in 1899. Horse Tamers was created when MacMonnies was already well known. It also wasn't the first to include nude figures. One of MacMonnies' best-known works, Dancing Bacchante, was offered as a gift to the Boston Public Library by the building's architect Charles McKim. The Women's Christian Temperance Union, however, caused such a public outcry, citing its drunken indecency, that the gift had to be refused. McKim gave the statue to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York instead. Marques de Lafayette, the French-born general who fought on behalf of American rebels during the Revolution, is represented in this nearly 10-foot-high bronze relief by Daniel Chester French. Located at the 9th Street entrance on Prospect Park West, the monument was a gift of Henry Harteau, a Brooklyn glass manufacturer of French ancestry. It was unveiled by representatives of the French War Commission in 1917. The work, set in a picturesque pink granite designed by architect Henry Bacon, features a heroic-sized Lafayette standing next to his horse. French also collaborated with Bacon on the marble sculpture of Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. At the 3rd Street entrance, we find a pair of bronze panthers that may appear identical, but like the live animals they represent, come to reveal their own character. Installed in 1898, they were cast by Alexander Phimister Proctor while studying at the Académie Julian in Paris. They stand on Indiana limestone pedestals designed by Stanford White. The full-size model for the North Panther was first displayed at the entrance to the Paris Exposition in 1900. In 1844, James Stranahan moved to Brooklyn, and as a result, it would be forever changed. He was a trustee of the New York and Brooklyn Bridge Company, serving as its president in 1885, and presided at the dedication of the Brooklyn Bridge on May 24, 1883. In the 1890s, Mr. Stranahan promoted the consolidation of the city of Brooklyn into a greater New York. He was the moving political force behind the development of Prospect Park and served as president of the Parks Commission from 1860 to 1882. The statue by Frederick MacMonnies was unveiled on June 6, 1891, in the presence of the then 83-year-old Stranahan. 2 other generals are represented in Grand Army Plaza. This sculpture by Henry Bower honors the distinguished Union Army General, Governor Kemble Warren. Warren was named lieutenant colonel of the 5th Regiment of New York in 1861 and fought at Big Bethel, Virginia. Later, as captain, he led the Yorktown siege of 1862 and was engaged in combat at Malvern Hill, Harrison's Landing, Second Bull Run, Antietam, Centerville, and Fredericksburg. This bronze statue of General Henry Warner Slocum by Frederick MacMonnies was unveiled on Memorial Day in 1905. President Theodore Roosevelt was the keynote speaker. Slocum commanded the extreme right line of the Union Army at Gettysburg and was one of the first Union soldiers to enter Atlanta in September 1864. In 1866, he moved to Brooklyn and was elected to the U.S. Congress in 1868 and 1870. Slocum served as Commissioner of Public Works in Brooklyn before returning to Congress in 1882. Walking under the arch brings the additional delight of seeing bronze reliefs of General Grant and Abraham Lincoln. William Rudolph O'Donovan sculpted both men, and the Philadelphia artist Thomas Eakins did the 2 horses. At the center of Grand Army Plaza is the Bailey Fountain, the 4th and longest-lasting fountain on the site. It was installed in 1932 and designed by architect Edgerton Swarthout and sculptor Eugene Francis Savage. It was named after Brooklyn-based financier and philanthropist Frank Bailey. The first fountain on the site was called the Fountain of the Golden Spray and featured a lone jet of water. It was replaced in 1873 by Calvert Vaux's Plaza Fountain, a 2-tiered, double-dome circular structure constructed from cast iron. Vaux placed gas lights in the fountain dome, each visible through the 24-colored glass windows. Vaux's fountain did not age well. Frederick Darlington's electric fountain would come to replace it. This new fountain featured 19 6,000 candle-power electric arc lights, each which could be remotely focused in narrow and intense or soft and wide beams. So great was the public fascination that attendance on opening night in 1897 was said to have attracted 100,000 people. Just north of Grand Army Plaza is this sculpture bust of Alexander Johnson Chalmers Skene, M.D. Skene was a Brooklyn-based physician, medical researcher, and hospital administrator. His most notable medical discovery was of the paraurethral glands, later named the Skene glands. The statue is the work of artist John Massey Rind, who is also responsible for the McKinley Memorial in Niles, Ohio. There's more sculpture in Prospect Park than we've been able to cover here, and it's worth looking at again, as art in addition to uncovering its historical significance. In fact, one piece of art by one of New York's best-known artists, Augustus Saint Gaudens, is now in the Brooklyn Museum. This bronze plaque is only a copy. It depicts Brooklyn resident Henry Maxwell, who was known for making a lot of money and giving it away. This memorial, paid for by his friends and neighbors, was unveiled in 1903 at its original location at the intersection of Flatbush Avenue and Eastern Parkway. The boulder on which the plaque rests, however, is the only thing here that was present for the occasion.